Chat rate 1, I don't see any chats. Hello. Why do I, oh, because I have top chat on? That's live chat. Is it hidden behind this thing that I can't remove? Probably. Hello. Hi Lana, how are you? Sorry, let me just get this even further out. Oh, I can, sweet. I need to remove this flap on this palette. It's been annoying me, but I need to grab something, do something about that because it's, don't like it. I don't know why, why they always come with that flap. It's not a useful little thing. Hi, Paulo. Making yourself a late dinner. Well, I have some good news. So for a long time I was on venlafaxine, which is an SNRI that I was on for chronic pain. It was originally prescribed for other stuff, but I was on it for chronic pain. It was very helpful with that, but it made me absolutely vegetative. And I didn't realize for a while until I'd upped my dose. Then I upped my dose again. Hey, Joy! I finally am fully off of that. It's been 6 days since my last dose. So I'm in withdrawal, but I cross-tapered into Cymbalta, which is a different SNRI to help deal with the chronic pain. It seems to be working, and it seems to have, at the very least, less of the making me brain dead effects. So I have a brain again. It's great. I don't want to jinx things in case, you know, I'm just in case this is temporary, so I'm not making any too big commitments, but so far it seems quite promising. So that's nice. I've been able to be quite productive the last little while. Yay, withdrawal. Oh no, what did you get to have with venlafaxine is widely considered to be one of the worst meds to get off of in terms of withdrawal symptoms. Like, you might as well be on heroin. It's been nasty. Just really bad. I get, it's, I don't know how much, so because I do have neuralgia, peripheral neuralgia, where I get like prickly, skin crawling, fire ants feelings around my legs and arms, which definitely have gotten a lot worse with withdrawal, but they're also not just withdrawal, so I don't know how much is what. They just give it to people. So it's an SNRI. So it's meant to be a long-term prescription. It was originally prescribed before I got, so I have ADHD, and before they put me on stimulants, they'd asked about like any concerns I had, and because I have a history of anxiety and panic attacks and didn't want to, like, when they asked me about like what my top concerns were, I didn't want to trigger a relapse into panic attacks. And so they prescribed venlafaxine as an anxiety med before putting me on stimulants. Because sometimes when you start stimulants, you can end up triggering panic attacks. I don't really know that it ever did anything for anxiety. Now, the truth is I was always on an extremely low dose. I just have a really bad... I have a really, well, really good and really bad. I have a really strong reaction to venlafaxine. So it was magic in that I started the baby dose that's not supposed to have any effect. And within a day, it had like dramatically improved some of my chronic pain. So then I was really positive about it at first. And on that lowest dose, the mental symptoms, I mean, first of all, they build up. So like at first they weren't noticeable, but then also the psychiatrist then was really enthusiastic about like, oh, this is great. It's helping with your chronic pain. Take more, take more, take more. And so at 3 times the baby dose, which is still considered like a low dose, because you can get up to like 3 times that, I think, it made me a vegetable. The first time I was on 112 or whatever. Yeah, so I mean, I guess the worst thing is that I knew that was an effect, and then I tapered back down, which like every time you taper back down, you get a withdrawal. But it gets worse, like heading down to 0. Like the closer you are to 0, the more that same amount of cut back effects. So, and it's they're capsules, and then there's like little beads inside. I was on the lowest dose. So if I wanted to have a lower dose than that, like if I wanted to taper slower, I would have had to start opening capsules and counting beads. And that is how a lot of people end up having to taper off of this med. I really, really didn't want to, so I toughed it and cross-tapered with Cymbalta. So I was nervous about it because it's a different, like it's a different SNRI in the same class. So it was possible that it would have worse effects, but I needed to get off of venlafaxine, and I needed to get through that withdrawal, which when I tried to do without a different med, the chronic pain was too much to handle. Yeah, anyway, so I mean I've been on it for I've been on it for 3 years at this point. And for about a year of that I was on a dose that just made me completely, like, basically barely conscious. Yeah. But it affects my brain functioning even at lower doses, just less. So the times you can actually kind of see what my what my prescription progressions look like based on my YouTube posting schedule. Or just like my general posting schedule is I just couldn't handle things. Couldn't do things, couldn't think. So, it seems like the Cymbalta's not having those same effects, at least so far. Now I am on a very low dose of that as well, but I'm handling my pain level, even with the withdrawal, and some of what I'm experiencing now is withdrawal. So, like, in a month or two, we can reevaluate what's left in terms of chronic pain and how to treat it. But yeah, so the last week has been unpleasant, but also kind of magic, because I'm like gradually getting my brain back. It feels so nice. I think it seems to be there to stay. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like maybe, I don't know what prescriptions are like in Germany or in Europe. It seems like some prescriptions are just harder to get, and that might be better. In Canada, the way they deal with, I guess, the lack of, there's limited medical resources. And so when you go in to see a psychiatrist or a doctor, their priority is to get you medicated and out of their hair as quickly as possible. So you come in with a complaint, they try a new medication, you get 15-20 minutes with the doctor, they best guess at what will help you, and then if you have problems, it's up to you to come back. But sometimes it's hard to know. It's hard to know, I find, especially with like symptoms that build up slowly, what is attached to what thing. With brain issues, it was just difficult because, especially when I was on a higher dose, like, I didn't have enough brain capacity to really process that I didn't have brain capacity, right? Like, I was sleeping 20-something hours a day. Or at least, like, 12 plus hours a day that I was actually asleep, and then not really awake or coherent or functioning the rest of the time. And it's hard in that state to know what is, that something is wrong, what it might be caused by. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I have some complaints about the specific psychiatrist that I got referred to. And I think it was, you know, verging on malpractice to not, because I didn't get any warnings about coming off of this medication if I was on it long term. Like, I did have an appointment when she prescribed it, and then like an appointment a week later to check in. And apparently if you started and you discontinue within a few days, it's not bad. But she didn't before prescribing it or at that week appointment tell me like, yeah, and if you try to come off this a year from now, that you know, you might as well be trying heroin. It seems odd that she tried it as a first line prescription. I mean, it kind of makes sense to me why she tried to increase it. Although at the time, I was really resistant to that when she was increasing my doses, even before I started having symptoms from it, because it was just like, well, why? Like, just because I'm doing well on a lower dose doesn't mean that I want a higher dose, right? Like, doesn't that just mean that my dose is right? And she's like, well, you don't have to increase it if you don't want to, but, you know, you're having such great effects. Like, okay, but why? Like it's helping with chronic pain. Oh, well, you know, at higher doses it has more of a norepinephrine effect, so it might help with your ADHD as well. So I kind of get that, but I wasn't terribly impressed with that. I don't know, it seemed like she was kind of just trying to make me into a test case. After surgery. Okay, so yes, so like doctors here are very hesitant to prescribe like opiates. And to be honest, that is part of why I'm sure I got prescribed an SNRI initially, and it's definitely like speaking to the doctor with the most recent doctor, part of the reason why I was nervous, but like I agreed with the choice, was this most recent time with coming off of venlafaxine. You know, I went to the doctor and was telling him, like, I'm at higher doses, this, you know, I've tapered off already, but at higher doses, this medication just makes me completely brain dead. And I still feel like I've got cognitive issues. I don't know how much of them are related to this, but like I do know that I'm still on this med that at double this dose makes me pretty dumb, and at triple this dose makes me a vegetable. And I've tried to taper off, but I can't because it's addictive. And I get withdrawal symptoms. And so, you know, talking to my regular doctor about trying something for the chronic pain, he was, you know, he said there are like pain medications for neuropathic pain that we could try, but given that I have had effective relief from SNRIs, that they are less they're less habit forming. Like, for all that the withdrawal was difficult from venlafaxine, it's not like it became less effective over time at dealing with chronic pain, right? Like, it was still the same amount of effective at a low dose 3 years on than it was initially, and that's something that is not the case with opiates or with things like gabapentin. So, you know, rather than switching to something that's a dedicated pain medication, if an SNRI is working as a pain med, for me, staying in that class, if we can, if there's a different one that I can tolerate, is better. It's just the risk there is like, well, okay, so it's effective for pain, but it also seems to be effective at like just killing all my brain function. So I was really nervous about it for that reason. But this one is easier to get off of, so there's that. And it does seem to still be effective, which is good. Are you intending to paint flower heads? Yes. In my reference photos on, here, where do I have? Oh, not that. In my reference photos on Discord, I've got some of the photos that I'm using for this piece. Let me see what's on there. So this is Encrusted Saxifrage, which is a polar species. There you go. Reference photos. And so I'm going to paint the rocks as well as the flowers. So yeah, rocks, background, flowers, everything. The whole scene. Where I'm playing with the scene. It's not an exact copy of any one of the photos. And in fact, I need to go fetch my pencil, because this one's not the right one. One moment. And I can take this and take the whole thing and put it over there. Yep. No, not like that. Take the whole thing and then put it over here. No, here. Why aren't you? There we go, much better. Yeah, there's some other, that's some other plants. So I am not going to include those because yes, that's just confusing. But I am going to include the lichen on the rocks. So this is basalt rock. So this is on Porphyry Island, which is a little island on the north shore of Lake Superior. Which is very far south of where this, so it's northern Ontario, but it's still very far south of the truly Arctic climates where encrusted saxifrage would usually be found. But it is because of glaciation, the range was extended for some time, and in areas that have maintained a very, very cold Arctic-like climate, there's something called the Arctic disjunct, where there's little pockets of Arctic species that present in areas where you wouldn't really expect them to. And so Porphyry Island is one of those places because it is a volcanic island that has all of this basalt, and it's in Lake Superior, which is by some measures the world's largest freshwater lake. It's not, it's smaller surface area than Lake Baikal, but it is deeper, I believe. Anyway, it's cold. And so you've got a cold water lake and a volcanic island in the middle of it. Not in the middle, but up on the North Shore, and so it has species like Encrusted Saxifrage that have thrived there. Oh, let us not spread that. Yeah. It's inhabiting that crevice. Yeah, so there's a few little grasses. There's some like wild strawberry. I don't think that's actually in those reference photos, but some of the other ones that I had. At some point I actually pulled some grasses just to clear up the scene a little bit. And then there's a whole bunch of like lichens and stuff that in there. This is about site size. So, you know, my hand for reference, or my size 3 paintbrush for reference. They're like little, think little houseplant succulents. Or slightly smaller. No, the only thing that the photo has really distorted in terms of size and scale is it is you know, these are rocks. These are going to be growing on the ground. So the way I had to get this photo is by bringing myself down to the level of these plants. So unless you're like walking up to a sheer cliff and it's up at face level, you're not going to see that view of the plant, right? Most of the time it's going to be something down by your feet. And amidst like the other plants growing in those crevices and the bright orange lichen, like these actually don't stand out massively. Which is part of the experience that I want to convey with painting in the background here. Yeah, they're clearly similar to Echeveria. The flower too. Yes. Yeah. Like very, very similar, but also Echeveria are not deep Arctic species. I have some very interesting teeny tiny things to work on from the same trip. I'm also going to try sculpture. And then I go in here and get that. Let's do this. For arid, warm climates, yes. So there's a bunch of different echeveria that are native to like central Mexico. That's amazing. Yeah, I spent a lot of time this summer lying down in the woods getting eaten by bugs while I sketched and photographed teeny tiny things. And some of them I might have to paint a little larger than life. Some of them I'll just make teeny tiny art. Or like teeny tiny details on a larger piece. Love the umbrella mound. Pincushion moss is a type that's specific to the southern hemisphere. I'm so glad you spent time lying in leaf litter being bitten by insects. So am I! Highlight of my summer. plant people, so the boyfriend works with lighting, so when I mentioned grow lights, he was really happy about being something he knows something about. Perfect, just gotta find the way to involve him. Right, okay, so then I need to deep green, more deep green, some of this. Oh yeah, okay. In there, and then over here we're gonna need to have a dark, very, very dark crevice. He's getting many moss photos. Perfect. Don't reindeer moss cladonia among the mosses, and I don't think I can keep it alive in the terrarium inside. I'm hoping the cold side of the house is cold enough for it. Yeah, that's interesting. There's reindeer moss in... There's reindeer moss up on Porphyry Island. I might have a dry sample. I considered when I was up there whether I could, yeah, keep a terrarium of some of the mosses and lichens from up there. They have like a warmer season, so at least for a while. I mean, I imagine that they eventually, like, without that cold season, the biggest issue is competition, probably? Right, so far south of you, so you probably has some... I mean, I imagine if you... Yeah, keep it in the cold side of the house, and you're just gonna have to manage competition, because without extreme cold, a lot of the Arctic species, or like far, like, you know, cold adapted species, it's less that they need that, you know, -40 or whatever, and more that they can survive it when other species can't. And so they get out competed. In more temperate climates. Yeah, I mean, there's probably no harm in tossing your reindeer moss in the freezer for a few weeks every year. Do you have a chest freezer? Just put the whole terrarium in the chest freezer? Yeah, so it's interesting with cold climates what kills different species. So there's quite a few that it's, you know, as soon as they freeze. Like, there's things like okra, tropical trees, many kinds of ferns, whatever, that they pout even if they've got, you know, moderately cool temperatures, and they just don't do well. that stuff doesn't even, you know, doesn't even, we can't even manage it here. Our tropicals. But we have quite a few, like there's quite a few like garden herbs and stuff that are Mediterranean and survive Canadian climates just fine. If a plant can survive a freeze, if a plant can survive a ground freeze, so there's above ground and below ground. So there's plants that can't survive a freeze above ground, and then there's plants that can't survive frozen ground. Anything that can survive frozen ground, there's like freeze thaw or length of freeze. And that's a lot easier to manage. So anything that can survive a ground freeze, usually even in like really, really far north climates, there's ways to work around it. But also the plants that are adapted to those harsh environments, it's not that they, like, it's not that a plant like the saxifrage is going to need it's not so much that it needs that long cold freeze, so much as that long cold freeze would be really difficult for other plants to survive. And so the reason the range doesn't extend further south is more to do with competition, in most cases, than it needs to be in the deep freeze for 6 months of the year or 8 months of the year. Like, no, it just gets out-competed in any environment that has more soil or has more should be able to do mounted on the tree for more. And growing seeds, so the delphinium I mimicked winter with moist stratification in the fridge. That has succeeded. Yep. So I'm about due to toss some seeds in the freezer. So yeah, we just take, vermiculite, throw some seeds in there, moisten it up in a little bag, label, toss it in the freezer, forget about it for a few weeks and pull it out. One came up without any stratification but didn't come out of its casing. The other thing that people do here is called winter sowing, where you can save yourself the trouble of growing things under lights inside, give them a bit of a head start, and do all of the cold, moist stratification all in one. You take some, gallon jugs or takeout containers or salad containers, whatever, any kind of plastic waste you have, poke some holes in the bottom, fill it up with moist soil, put your seeds in there, close it up, and toss it outside in a forgotten part of the garden. And it'll get covered in snow and whatever, and you just keep forgetting about it until in early spring it'll come up before other things because it's in a little, mini greenhouse. And grow up a little bit faster because it's getting full sunlight. It is and it isn't. There are people who insist you can winter sow anything in any climate and any, I have an indoor growing space to start my seedlings. And frankly, in January, February, like I enjoy having that bit of, sorry, I'm stalling a tiny bit. I'm gonna go refill my drink. What I was saying was in January, February, I have a moment there where like I really want to be outside gardening. Everything here is covered in snow, or snow's a positive, but sometimes it's less snow and just like icy slush. And there's nothing green. And at that point in the year, I really, really enjoy having, okay, well now I can start peppers and see the little peppers pop up. And I get that if I started some, better adapted peppers, shall we say, and I had tossed them out in a winter sowing thing, that they would pop up, and that in the summer, that they would compete just fine with my peppers that I started indoors. And that by August I wouldn't be able to tell which were sown indoors in February versus which came up on their own in March or April in my little greenhouses, but probably more like April. But that being said, sowing outside doesn't give me the satisfaction in February when I most want it. Electrolytes, cinnamon roll. Okay, I'm also going to swap my paint water. You know what? I was going to put another... Yeah. Okay. I was going to put another Saxifrage in there, but I'm not going to. Because I want more room for the edge of the rock to become clear. I want to show how this rock face, like that it's in a little crevice in a corner. And if I don't have enough exposed here, then it becomes less obvious. So I'm gonna do that. Okay, and I'm gonna refill my water again, but just up here. You reminded me to drink some water too. Yes, water's important. Water. Okay. that up. Then I can do one of these. My Obsidian Orchid is definitely sending out a new growth. It's definitely time to attempt to mount it. So many houseplant things that I have zero experience with. I'm an expert at killing houseplants. I do really well with outdoor plants, but indoor plants not so much. That rock is looking particularly attractive. Thank you. Yes, my challenge here is to keep my Saxifrage as the obvious subject, but it's on a very striking orange and black rock, and I do want to have like that, you know, bright turquoise sky and lake over here. So that's what I'm grappling with. They used to be me, but with limited energy, indoor plants became my friends. Yes, well, we'll see. The past few months I've had some really terrible heat intolerance, which makes outdoor gardening difficult because the months where outdoor plants grow tend to be pretty hot where I live. And a moss and bird's nest fern terrarium. I think that I mean, eventually I might try to set up a terrarium cabinet or something, but gotta figure out some of the renovations here first. Oh. Canada definitely gets more extremes both ends. Island climate moderates climate so much. Yes. And we'll see in the next few years just how bad my heat intolerance is. But I was looking at like, where can I go that doesn't ever get too hot? for me to survive. And given that it's like 23 degrees Celsius when I start kind of falling apart, the answer is not many places. Like, it is really not ideal. Interestingly, there's areas like Newfoundland, St. John's, that are very, very far north, but because they're coastal, they don't get as cold winters. So they're similar in winter to where I am now, but don't ever get hot summers either. Now, I don't know that I can really handle all the aspects of living somewhere like Newfoundland, but climate-wise, that seems sort of ideal to me. problem with growing with seeds is how to fit all the plants in a small garden if you have a good strike rate. So the way I've solved that problem is by invading all my neighbors' gardens. Do you have good neighbors? Do your neighbors have larger gardens? Do your neighbors have larger gardens that they don't know how to take care of? Do your neighbors have larger gardens that they don't know how to take care of and that they're happy to just let you take care of? Number of seeds have been sent to the nibblings. Also that, yes, exactly. So my sister lives not far from here, and yes, my nephew has his garden. He's very excited about pumpkins. My brother-in-law actually sent me a message yesterday concerned about pumpkins. Just, I hope these pumpkins are gonna survive and grow big before Halloween. He's fine. Don't worry. Oh, don't worry, the pumpkins will take over. You're great. You're gonna have huge pumpkins. If you don't, I have huge pumpkins because my pumpkins took over my garden, turned into giant triffids this year. Yes, so that was one of my brother-in-law's concerns, as he sent me a message because they started out their garden and I wasn't there. Like, I gave them the little seedlings to start, and they put pumpkins in between tomatoes. The pumpkins spread around, grew all around the tomatoes, and then started growing out of the garden. My sister had trained them up the fence up onto their patio, balcony thing. And so there's pumpkin vines like draped over the fence, and so there's a pumpkin, and pumpkin's already gotten pretty sizable just hanging in midair. And so the first message I got was, what kind of pumpkins grow not on the ground? And I said, well, actually all pumpkins, they're vines. Often they're grown in a field, in which case they grow wherever the vine goes. But if you give vines something to scramble over and climb, they're going to climb. And so it was like, the pumpkins I gave you are going to be large. I did deliberately choose large pumpkins because my nephew's 4, and it's impressive for the 4-year-old. So in your garden, like, all the pumpkins I gave you, all the pumpkin seedlings I gave you are for large pumpkins. So you might want to give it a chair, a sling, something, or not. I was surprised. I have a substantial pumpkin. that because I was away at this residency, and then I have some heat intolerance issues that have developed, I was not present in my garden for a lot of the year, and so I came back and the pumpkins had taken over, and so one of the pumpkin vines had grown clear across from the other side of the garden and grown up. I have an arched trellis, and so it had grown up an arched trellis, and so the largest pumpkin was just hanging at like chest height, you know, by the time I saw it, like this big. Okay. If you want to know a really creepy plant, kiwi fruit vines. I mean, we grow kiwis here too. Not the like the most common kinds of kiwis, but like there are like two or three different species of kiwis that are hardy. What makes it creepy for you? Yeah, Lana, you're in a similar climate as me. We can get like we can't grow like the big furry kiwis, but like the little kiwis. Like Actidinia colomicta and what's the other one? Name escapes me, but there are two or three different species of kiwis that are hardier. The vines are fluffy and they grow so fast and actively seek support. So they grow so fast and actively seek support so you can have your back turned to them, turn around, and they're in your face trying to latch on. Okay, yeah, fair enough. The two species that are common to grow here are the Arctic kiwis are a little bit less vigorous than the other. They are pretty, like they're still pretty, yeah. She has normal sized kiwis, but usually the summers are not hot enough and they stay sour. But since 2018, she has sweet kiwis. Climate has changed. Okay, wow. Yeah, so I know kiwis have gotten common to grow here, but they're not, the ones that are commonly grown here are different species. They are not the same commonly like furry on the outside, like substantial, you know, big kiwis. They tend to be smaller. Like the Arctic kiwis are tiny. They're like this big. And then some of the varieties of the whatever hardy kiwis are a little bit bigger and they come in all kinds of fun colors. But they're not as furry on the outside. They are sweet, though. But I don't know anyone growing. I don't even know where to get the like commercial kiwi vines. The hardy and Arctic kiwi vines are everywhere here. Like, and you can get different varieties. They're often grown as decorative too, because especially The Arctic kiwis have like pink variegated foliage. Bye, Joy. I might actually be cutting this short soon because I'm I don't know, itchy. Yeah. So I think I might be leaving soon myself. I'm not feeling great. The withdrawal sucks. But hopefully I can finish this up in the next few days. I'm probably not gonna stream next weekend because or next Friday, because I don't think I will be in town. I think I'm traveling to Toronto. So, I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye. My kin is looking fantastic. Yes, it is. I'm very happy with it. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Okay. And over here.